Hello and welcome to Ladies Talking Business. As always, I remain your host, Irene Ubani. In the studio with me today is Chinwe Egwim, an economist at FBN Quest Merchant Bank, a subsidiary of FBN Holdings. Today we'll be speaking on structuring your business for growth, a very vital topic for business growth, of course. Amazing to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so let's talk about, structure for a little bit. What are the very important areas that businesses seldom incorporate structure into, and how can they leverage on, becoming globally competitive?
Okay, so one thing that I've noticed with SMEs that I engage with is the lack of advisory boards. And it's really important because business owners need to be accountable to people. And there's another thing which I'm always picking on, which is domain names. So you see businesses xxx@gmail.com or at yahoo.com. Those are little things that I feel business owners should look into to correct. I would say I'm going to place my sponsorship hat on. I tend to view sponsorship letters from that come to the firm, right?
Okay.
And I can tell you this, that if I see a business that has at gmail.com, it may go into the bin, as opposed
because it has a gmail.com.
Yes. It's so little, but it's so big at the same time. You don't want to fund a hobby. Do you understand? So I think business owners need to look into that. I also, again, I'll return to the advisory board. It's good to have someone that chairs your board and other people that you are accountable to. You're discussing your business ideas, business growth, what's going on with your firm, what short-term, medium-term, long-term goals. So
being very strategic, basically.
Exactly. So so those are the two things I'm going to highlight.
All right, so we know that the National Bureau of Statistics, they usually release relevant data that's usually, of course, very important to businesses as well. But I noticed that some business owners work in isolation of this data.
Yes, so a lot of business owners work in isolation.
Actually, a lot of them.
Yes, so many. There's so much out there that the NBS puts out. Not just the NBS, you even have the NCC, that's the National Communication Commission, and even the Debt Management Office. They put out data, yes, and the CBN, of course. So, you have data like the inflation report. And interestingly, we just received the inflation report for February, right? And the rate declined marginally for February. Now, looking at this data, headline food inflation and core inflation, for businesses that operate in the food segment,
consumer goods segment.
Well, restaurants, let's say the restaurant business. Food inflation is something that they should be looking at, they should be tracking. I understand that data can be cumbersome to digest. And so
some people don't like to look at figures. They just want to hold the money.
It's scary. So I advise business owners to try and engage people like me to look at data and break it down for them to understand what's going on in segments that they operate in. So inflation, that kind of measures the rate at which prices are increasing, right? You look at that, you look at your consumers. They have competing spending priorities. If things are going up in the market, what are you doing to be innovative or more attractive to consumer to pick your product over the next
other?
Yes, so that's something I feel like business owners should look into that they don't look into right now.
So you should kind of create an inflation basket for themselves.
Exactly. So no, that's now on the production side, right? So as a business owner, you create your own basket, meaning you look at the items you would spend on a monthly basis, record that, keep that data, and accumulate at least for 1 year, and then compare the prices of those products that you would spend on frequently. Compare it and see the change, the rate in change. It kind of helps you prepare yourself better with cost-cutting procedures. It helps you with profit maximization. It's just like saying you have a, what do you call this? Like the fortune, when you can see the future, that ball.
I don't know what that is.
Yeah, but it's just like you're staying ahead of the game when you're able to accumulate this data, which, by the way, it's only you that would have as a business. Let me break it down a bit more. Let's say, again, a restaurant business. You would use rice, I believe.
Tomatoes.
Yeah, exactly. Plantain, all that good stuff. Having a data sheet that has all these products that you use on a regular, the pricing, and literally monitoring it, the data is going to grow to something really big, and then you can get someone to interpret it for you over at least 1 year. 1 year is a good time frame to have.
Because based on what you're saying, I can tell that at some point the sheet is telling you that maybe in January you spent 500,000 on tomatoes, February was 600,000, March it was 300,000. Oh, okay.
So yes, that's a good example you just laid out. So if you see that trend, maybe you could do bulk purchases in January, which was the lowest figure you gave, right? And then it helps you save money. We've seen that in December, Q4, so that's October. October, November, December, prices kind of shoot up because of high demand, and that's because of the seasonal effect, Christmas festivities, right? So it's good to know these things so that you protect yourself, your business from price swings. Yeah,
and it helps your balance sheet, more defined.
Of course, because if you are on top of this and you are able to cut costs, it should have a direct impact on profit maximization.
Yes.
For you. So it would help a whole lot. And then there's also the GDP data, which comes out quarterly from the National Bureau of Statistics, right?
Okay.
And it's broken down into sectors. So you have agriculture, manufacturing, telecoms, you have trade, you have transport and storage,
oil and gas,
yeah. Because most SMEs operate in the non-oil economy, I tend not to speak on the oil and
fair
gas.
Enough.
Yes. So the thing or the importance of that data for a business would be to see the trend in growth for those sectors, because most of your consumers or most of the people that buy from you, they operate in those sectors, right? So I'm in banking and finance, right? If my sector is tanking, perhaps there might be retrenchment going on there, there might be allowances being slashed. So
your purchasing power now reduces.
So purchasing power shrinks, and it will be good for businesses to actually examine the segments or sectors that their consumers operate in. It allows them to know, because the thing is, when that happens, you are dealing with consumers that are dealing with competing spending priorities. So spending capacity has dropped, so you need to be, so what that would do for a business is to push the business owners or the employees within the business to be more strategic
and creative too.
Yes, to be able to protect and grow the market share that they have.
And what other data released by the NBS would you recommend businesses to always, take a look at least, or find someone to help them with?
Okay, so there's the Business Confidence Index, and what that data shows, it's really how do I put this, like constraints that businesses face, how it's really impacting, or how it impacted on in that month that is being published. So let's say power challenges, access to finance, inflation, of course. All of that is put in there, and it's a survey with I think over 1,000 businesses. Okay. And then they come up with results, which allow you to see how your, can I call them competitors or your colleagues, how they're faring for the month. Apart from the NBS, even we release
at FBN.
Yes, we have a special report that comes out every month. It's called the Purchasing Managers Index. Okay. And what that does, it checks the temperature of the manufacturing sector. Okay. And so we have partners that or a partner, sorry, that does the survey for us. Okay. And so when the index is above 50, it means the manufacturing sector is doing okay. When the index is below 50, there's a problem. Now, I think 2014. In 2014, when the oil price slide happened, the global oil price slide happened, we had issues with FX. The country had issues with FX. So securing FX for imported inputs was a big problem, and that fed into the PMI. We saw the figures coming in bad because of poor.
For those that don't know what PMI is the Purchasing Managers Index.
Yeah, due to poor access to FX, right? So manufacturers were struggling with gaining access to FX, and that affected the PMI. So it's also data that's good to look at, to examine. It's just, as I always say, just a way to protect yourself and just be ahead of the game. Yeah.
Okay, so let's take a quick break now. When we return, Chinwe would tell us ways in which small businesses can become more competitive. Thank you for staying with us. You're still watching Ladies Talking Business on PlusTVAfrica. All right, Chinwe, how can SMEs become more competitive such that they are now competing with, the global brands out there?
I feel that SMEs are ready, or it depends on the business owner, right? As I said earlier, structure is very important, and so you need to get your structure in place. You need to get your company registered properly, check your taxes, and every legal document that you should have, right? I also feel like quality assurance is something that businesses lack in Nigeria. Most business owners are interested in just putting out the product
and making money.
And making money, as opposed to actually checking the quality of the products they're putting out there. And so to be able to compete globally, you need to be very deliberate about looking at your products and quality assurance. Now, to be globally competitive, you really need to invest in production, right? I understand that the business environment is a bit difficult here in Nigeria.
Staffing, they say. Some people say.
Yeah, it is, but it's time to take matters into your own hands as a business owner. And access to funds, that would be a big thing or a big issue for businesses to be able to take matters into their own hands. There's this recent report that came out that said that SMEs accounted for less than 30% of funds that go out from banks, commercial banks. So the large companies are the ones that access,
getting the funds.
So my thing would be to restructure the mindset or change the mindset of business owners to invest earnings, profits into funds. So like at FBN,
what kind of funds would you suggest?
I would say mutual funds, like at FBN Quest Merchant Bank, where I work. We have a few funds. We have something called the money market. Now this, I've noticed that business owners, they would have accounts in these mutual funds, but as themselves, as opposed to for their business. A money market fund, you could go in with as low as 5,000 naira. And you let the money sit in there for a bit. The yields are that today, I think the range is between 13 to 15%, which is better than placing it somewhere that it would just give you a 2% or a 3% at the end of the year. So I would advise businesses.
That's higher than inflation rate, of course.
Of course. So I would advise businesses to think about investing profit. I'm not saying your operational costs. Okay. I'm saying like you're free. Exactly, you're free. The free cash, meaning your profit. Put it in a fund. Let your money make money for you.
Yes.
And then the spread that you're able to make, you can now invest that into your business. So you can invest that into the power segment of your business, generate power for yourself, which most of us do. And that would help with product production, and the kind of products that we would like to see. And it would expose them to the global village, and they can compete effectively.
I think I like the part where you said it shouldn't be your capital that you're putting in, but then the profit. That way your money is also working for you, of course.
Exactly.
All right, and then sometimes we know of the US-China trade war, we know about the British exit, Brexit, but then some businesses here in Nigeria would say, oh, how does that concern me?
Yeah.
But how does it really, you know, affect them?
I think for me, what I would say is this: it presents a good case for the Africa Free Trade Continental Area. It presents a good case for that, and so that really is a block that is trying to be created with African countries, right? As we speak, Nigeria hasn't signed on yet, and I understand why. They have to look at all that it entails and make sure that we're not receiving the shorter end of the stick, right? So if it actually falls through, it would be a good opportunity for our SMEs to expand their market share, expand their consumer base, you know, selling a product from here to someone in Kenya or someone in Tanzania or our neighbors Ghana, you know, with ease. So I think businesses should actually sit down, re-strategize, and find out how they can make themselves competitive in anticipation of that. Because it would be really upsetting if that happens and you find yourself frustrated that, oh, if only I had known, I would have began strategizing or restructuring my business to be able to compete with other African firms. Again, Nigeria is, I think, yeah, of course, we're the highest. Our population is the highest across Africa. So yes, yeah, exactly. So we our consumer market is large. So if that happens as well, one concern would be other African countries trying to dump their products here because the market here is large. So aside from positioning yourself to export to other countries, you also need to position yourself to remain relevant to your own local consumers. So I think it's important. So really, I wouldn't say it has a direct impact on us. That's the US-China trade negotiations. I would say it's a direct impact. I would say it's an indirect impact. And it would be nice for SMEs to leverage
themselves already.
Exactly.
You know.
Exactly.
All right, that's good. And there was a woman up, conversation that took place on the 14th or 15th of March. Yes. One of the panelists mentioned that she feels SMEs are in different sectors, they are doing different things. So she doesn't think that they should all be, referred to as SMEs. What's your thoughts on this? I mean, we had a number of people really clapping and super excited. Yeah.
Okay, so I disagree with that because by definition, this definition is by the CBN. An SME is a firm that has, I think, below 300 employees and an annual turnover of less than 100 million naira. So by definition, it's not a sectoral conversation. It's not about if the SME is playing in this field or that field. If your company is not employing beyond 300 people or your annual turnover is not beyond the set amount, then it's an SME. I also don't understand why being called an SME should be seen in a bad light, because I believe that there are a lot of interventions, financial interventions for SMEs. The CBN, the Bank of Industry, I think even the new Development Bank of Nigeria, they're looking into pumping in funds for the growth of SMEs. SMEs are the engine of every economy, and they account for like 50% of our GDP. So I don't really understand why someone put that out there.
All right, Chinwe, since you are an economist, is there any other relevant data you think the audience would be very relevant for the audience?
Yes, so fiscal data, so tracking the government's spending and revenue collection. So every year, as you know, the government will put out a budget figure. Yes. So within that budget, you would see something for recurrent expenditure and for capital expenditure. Now, capital expenditure, capital expenses are really important because when they're able to disperse money for capital projects, you see that more projects in the construction segment especially crop up. And what that does is it kind of helps boost money circulation because you're employing more people, and then there's a trickle-down effect, And so for business owners, if you are operating with in a market, or you're operating with products that are for the mass market, that's a good thing for you. There's more spending capacity because of that capital expense that was released. There's also talk around increasing the minimum wage, which I think is currently 18,000, and they want to take it up to 28,000. Now, if that happens, that's a good thing as well, because you would see a release, or the purse would expand, or pockets would expand, which
purchasing power increases,
exactly,
of course.
Exactly, which should bode well for businesses. So all of this is really important. I know it sounds boring.
No.
No, but it's very important. And I also understand that if a business owner is not up to it in terms of data analysis or data interpretation, it's not easy. It's you have to have a passion for it, aside from studying this in school. But if you feel that way, I think it's sensible to engage someone, even if it's like on a contract base. Let's say 3 months. Come and talk to us about every 3 months. Come and talk to us about what's going on in the economy. Let's understand the data. How does it affect us? Can you look at our own, exactly? Can you look at our own data? How can we leverage on our own specialized information internally to position ourselves better, so we can operate at our best or optimal level? So yes, I think businesses have a lot to gain from data analysis.
Yeah, because for me, I think this is what differentiates a roadside business who wants to move to, for example, a Louis Vuitton that started really small and then has scaled up and scaled up and has now become a global brand. That's what differentiates you from, you know, the other ones that remain there for 10, 20, 30 years and staying in one, you know, little store.
It does. An important thing about economic data is that it helps with strategy. So for businesses that say they have strategy departments or strategy segments, economic data is really important. I can't overemphasize this. It's important. It's like looking into the future.
Of course. Of course.
So when you study the trends, you kind of know how to just position yourself. And even the global market. The global market is very important. Oil price, it affects us tremendously. We are an economy that focuses on oil for our revenue. And so when you see the oil price slide or dip, like what we saw in 2014, it's a problem. It's a problem because it would affect our revenue. That's our FX revenue. When that happens, there's FX scarcity. This nation is heavily import dependent. I know we're trying to change that with economic diversification, but that hasn't happened yet. A lot of businesses import to sustain or to add on to what they're producing for their businesses. So studying the oil price is really important. And yeah, like,
those are things people don't really take, you know, very seriously, but they impact on us one way or the other.
And even that oil price slide, you know, something that happened, but this was for individuals, those that had money, you know, when the oil price slipped, the stock market also tanked, right? And so those that had money came in at the time. And so it takes us back to what I said about investing for your business. If you had money as a business and you went in at the time, imagine the kind of profit or the kind of money you would have made when the economy picked up in 2017, that towards the end of 2017. So these are things that I feel businesses need to look into, and yeah, they'll be better than they imagine.
All right, thank you very much, Chinwe, for joining me. Thank you for staying with us on Ladies Talking Business. I remain your host, Irene Ubani. Until next time, and remember, you can always tune in for more content on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We also air on StarTimes channel 308. Until next time, bye.